Thank you for joining me this afternoon for our concurrent and dual enrollment information session. This afternoon, I have three goals. First, I want to make sure that we're able to distinguish between concurrent enrollment and dual enrollment. I want to talk about some of the policies related to each of these, and you can see some of the emphases that I'll have. And then I also want to share a little bit about the application process for students who are interested in dual or concurrent enrollment. So to get started, first goal, we've got to figure out what's the difference between these two things. So in this example, I've got a fictitious course 5300, and I'm looking at a student who is an undergraduate and they're interested in taking that course. You can see in my image here that I've represented their transcript or their degree audit with these scrolls. And the fact that all of these squigglies are filled in is telling me that they've got all of the undergraduate classes they need, and perhaps are in their, they're in their last semester of their undergraduate degree. And although they've got some undergraduate courses to take, there's a little space within their schedule to take a graduate course. And so they do that. Course 5300 shows up as a graduate course. And this situation is referred to as concurrent enrollment. This is not a new policy. This policy was here when I arrived in 2017. So it's been around for at least 5 years. And it's rarely used. And in just a minute, we'll get to why it's rarely used. But it was actually this fact that it was rarely used that led the Graduate Council last year to decide to develop a new enrollment status. And so this is dual enrollment that I'll talk about now. So here, if you look at the undergraduate transcript or degree audit, you can see there's a space there for a course that has not been taken. It's at the senior level, so it's probably a 4000 level course. And it's a 4000 level course that's cross-listed with the 5000 level course. So in dual enrollment, they can take the graduate level 5000 level course and then substitute it into the undergraduate degree so that it's applying to the undergraduate degree. So you can see, like, just looking at this, these images, this visual, concurrent enrollment, the course is not counting in the undergraduate degree. In dual enrollment, it is counting in the undergraduate degree. And again, this is a new policy. So we went through the process of drafting this and getting approval for it in the previous academic year. So this is the first year that it's been a possibility, and it has not been used yet. And that's because it takes some planning on the front end to make this happen. I'm really anticipating students being able to take advantage of this dual enrollment policy next academic year. So when you look at these two side by side, it is important to remember the terminology. So I want to point out how I remember the difference in the two. So here we see that they're taking this graduate course, and it's a part of a graduate transcript, and they're doing that simultaneously as they're taking their undergraduate classes. So it's concurrent, like they are concurrently taking graduate and undergraduate classes, and there's no like overlap there. Whereas dual enrollment, it's like double dipping, right? So you're taking this graduate course, but it's also applying to the undergraduate degree. So to me, that double dipping showing up in both places suggests dual enrollment. So it's about the course. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the related policies to these two different enrollment types and really comparing and contrasting those side by side. So first of all, both policies are for UCA undergrads only. This is not something that an undergraduate at another institution could try to enroll using these enrollment options and then take a graduate course here. That's not the case. The courses can be applied to a graduate degree. That's true for both of these. These courses, when they take the 5000 level course, it shows up as a 5000 level course. So it shows up as a graduate course. It shows on a graduate transcript. So it's not like it's hidden in an undergraduate transcript. It's over here on a graduate transcript. And therefore it can be applied to a graduate degree. We'll take it here at UCA if it fits within the program, right? And other universities, if the student decides to go to another university to pursue their graduate degree, then that university can transfer that class in if it fits within that program there. Courses are applied to the UCA undergraduate degree. So that's the key difference between these two enrollments, right? So for concurrent, they do not apply to the undergraduate degree, but for dual, they do apply to the undergraduate degree. When can graduate courses be taken? For concurrent enrollment, it's in their final semester of their undergraduate degree. Again, the idea is they've made it to the last semester. They have some undergraduate classes left to take, but there is some space. So maybe they only have 12 hours of courses and they'd like to pick up an extra class. They could do that with concurrent. Dual enrollment, however, is open for the option of the senior year. So that allows, again, for that advising on the front end to look ahead and go, okay, you could take these 4,000 level classes, but instead we'll do 5,000 as a part of dual enrollment. So you have that senior year to work with. In terms of the maximum number of hours or the maximum number of courses that you're allowed, dual enrollment we specified last year that the maximum number of hours could be 8 or the maximum number of courses could be 2. The reason for 8 hours is some of the programs like in the sciences, they'll have a 4-hour course. So by putting it at 8, it allows the student to get 2 courses in regardless of what program you're in. But we do maximize it at 2 courses. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. For concurrent enrollment, currently, there's not a maximum number of hours clearly stated, but there is a proposal being considered, a policy that's being considered by a subgroup of the Graduate Council to put the same max as we have for dual enrollment with concurrent enrollment. Financial aid or scholarships will cover the tuition. So that is true of dual enrollment, and that is not necessarily true of concurrent enrollment. In fact, a moment ago, I mentioned that concurrent enrollment is a policy that students rarely take advantage of, and this is why. So financial aid is not going to pay tuition for a course that's not applying to the degree. So when a student applies to take a graduate class via concurrent enrollment, financial aid doesn't cover the tuition. Most scholarships will not cover that as well. Again, it's this idea that it's not a class that you have to have, and therefore the funder is not going to pay for it. That's the advantage of dual enrollment, right? So in dual enrollment, it is a class that's counting towards your degree. And therefore, your financial aid or your scholarships will cover the tuition expense for that class. The dual enrollment has a restriction that the graduate course has to be at the 5,000 level. And that's what allows for the 5,000 level to count in the 4,000 level place, because the expectation is that the courses are cross-listed. Concurrent enrollment does not have that requirement. Now, do we want to go crazy and put a master's, like an undergraduate student, in a doctoral level class? Obviously not. But it does open up the possibility for perhaps a 6,000 level class, depending on the student and what they're interested in. One question that's come up in recent weeks is, can a student benefit from both concurrent and dual enrollment programs? In other words, could they take 2 classes as a dual enrolled student and then maybe 2 more classes as a concurrent enrolled student? And the answer to that question is no. Frankly, we wouldn't want to do that in a single semester. Like, you have to be one status or the other in a given semester. And then behind the scenes, we don't have the resources to manage tracking a student, whether they're concurrent or dual, in a given time frame. This process is it depends on people. It's not something that automatically happens. So we've got people in our office working with people in the registrar's office to make sure the degree audits take care of all this. We have to work with financial aid. So that it's just not possible for us to do that at this time. So now that we have a feel for the two enrollment statuses and as well as like how they compare and contrast with one another, I want to take a look at the procedures that are related to dual and concurrent enrollment. Perhaps the most important piece to this is advising. So if you're working with a student and they're interested in concurrent enrollment, it's important. There's two things that are important. One I have written down right here, and that is that the total number of undergraduate hours that they're taking in that last semester, plus the number of graduate hours that they're taking in that last semester, has to be less than or equal to 15 hours. So that is definitely a part of the conversation that you all would have to have with a potential student, a potential concurrent enrollment student. It is important, though, to also let them know that because the graduate course that they're taking is not a part of this degree plan, that it is likely that financial aid will not cover it, and it is likely that their scholarships will not cover it. So they should always go back and make sure that their scholarships or whatever will cover it, or that they're willing to pay the tuition for that. For dual enrollment, advising means, perhaps at the end of the junior year, looking ahead to the senior year and identifying what is the 4,000 level course that the student is going to need, and is it cross-listed with the 5,000 level course so that they can take that instead and have it apply to the undergraduate program. One question that I was recently asked was, does it matter whether the class that's over here in the undergraduate transcript, does it have to be in the an upper level course, or does it have to be in the major? And we did not get down into the weeds of where it fit in the degree plan. The idea is that it counts and it's applying to the degree plan, and in no way has it increased the number of hours that the student has to take. And then, like concurrent enrollment, the number of undergraduate hours plus the graduate hours has to be less than or equal to 15. So this would not be an option if a student is coming into a semester in their senior year and they're having to take 18 hours. The other piece, and I probably should have said this first, is that as a program, as a graduate program, you all have to decide whether you want students to participate in this or not. So the policy makes it an option, but it's not going to be an option for all programs. We're not ready yet to write down, here are the different programs that do this, or here are the ones that do not. But as a program, you should be thinking about this and whether this is something you want to be an option for your students, so that you can talk to them as a part of advising and let them know. So I do want to share one scenario that's not allowed, okay? So in this scenario, you have a student, they're in their last semester, they have the classes that they need to complete their undergraduate degree, and you talk to them and they are very excited about concurrent enrollment. So they like the idea of taking an extra class at the graduate level, and so they're all in. But then they find out that they're personally going to have to pay the tuition, and they go, I can't do that. So at that point, so they go, oh, no, never mind, I can't do that. Let's talk about dual enrollment, right? So at that point, it is tempting to think about dual enrollment, because now you're taking the graduate course and the tuition would be covered. But here's the thing, in order to make that happen, we're going to have to take something on the undergrad transcript, some course that was counting and can count, should count, and we're dropping it out of their program and saying, okay, never mind, we're not going to count that, and instead we're going to move that graduate course in its place. Yeah, we're not going to get into that business either, because then what you've done is misrepresent what this student needs to graduate, and you've added a course onto their total that they had at the undergraduate level by dropping that course into a space where it's not being applied. So if this is the case, that the student started, they've gotten all of their undergraduate completed, or they're in the process of completing it, and this 5,300, the graduate course, is an extra, then the only option they have is concurrent. Even if the student says, but I can move my class down here and then take it and fit it there. No, dual enrollment is not about adding on additional hours to the undergraduate degree program. Still talking about procedures. So the student application, I do want you to have some familiarity with the application. So this is handled through Slate. When a student logs into Slate, they can select concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment. They are given a brief description of each and some of the highlights of each one so that they can make an informed decision. However, once it comes to us, we make sure that they've selected the right one based on their circumstances. They enter the course or the courses, the 2 courses that they plan to take. So that's a part of it. And it also helps us to know which one of these enrollment types they should be. They do not pay an application fee. These folks are already students, and so we look at them as a student taking some more classes, so they do not pay an application fee. If they elect to go into graduate school here at UCA, that's when they would pay the application fee at the time they're actually applying and getting started. They do not have to submit transcripts or any other admission materials. They are UCA undergraduates, so we have access to their transcripts. And because it's dual or concurrent, there's no other references or letters of interest, things like that. They don't have to do that. So it's a pretty straightforward process, right? You go in, fill out the form, enter the courses, and you're done. In terms of reviewing applications, again, this takes place in Slate. It's set up so that the first person to see it is the undergraduate advisor. So that's an important person who's helping us to be sure that, for example, if they're doing dual enrollment, that graduate course will in fact fit within the undergraduate plan. The department chair looks at it to make sure, that the student is a strong enough student to be pursuing graduate courses at this point in their academic career. The graduate program looks at it. The graduate program coordinator would look at it and also look in terms of student potential. But then in addition, think about the courses that they've selected and ask themselves, do we have space in these courses for a senior to be taking it? In other words, if you've got 50 graduate students who are all battling for 30 seats in a specific course, you would not want to give up one of those seats to an undergraduate who doesn't need it at this point when those graduate students do. So those are some of the things the graduate program coordinator will look at. And then it comes to me as the graduate dean to look over everything and make sure we're all on the same page in terms of working with this student. The last thing I'll say that's here in my PowerPoint is that, there are 2 people that you work closely with as a part of both dual and concurrent enrollment. In terms of Slate and the different aspects of Slate, whether it's the student applying or maybe you as the program coordinator trying to review those applications, those questions go to Ray in our office. If it's about the application itself, those questions go to Taylor. Taylor works with all concurrent and dual enrollment applications, regardless of the program that the student is interested in. So those questions go to Taylor. And I'll put my image back up here that helps me to kind of think through these different scenarios. And I will say, I've got my notes right here that I'm looking at. One question that I've gotten, and I have 2 questions I want to address to be very clear. One is around the dual enrollment, and when it says 2 courses, is that 2 per semester or is that 2 total? It's 2 total, right? So it could be that they take 1 class in the fall and 1 class in the spring. Assuming they're graduating in the spring, or they could take 2 in the fall or 2 in the spring, but it is a maximum of 2 classes. The other question that I've gotten is about why the 2 course maximum. And so, in terms of concurrent enrollment, if you're taking, let's say you're taking 3 graduate classes at one time, that's 9 hours, assuming a 3-hour course. That's 9 hours, and that is a full-time graduate load. So we would not want to set up students where they're taking a full graduate load on top of the undergraduate courses that they're taking. So that is, part of the reason why we shy away from more than 2 courses. The other thing that's figuring into these conversations is these enrollment statuses of concurrent and dual were never intended to support a student in finishing a master's program early. They're about kickstarting the graduate experience rather than trying to shorten the time to receiving a graduate degree. And so with that in mind, we did not want to set up a system where a student would complete their undergraduate degree and also at the same time they've already finished half of their master's program. If your program is interested in trying to figure out how can we shorten the time to completion of the master's degree, these are not your options to be talking about with regard to that. Instead, you should be thinking about a 4+1 program. We have a 4+1 program on our campus. It's in computer science. Those students they have a plan. It's formally laid out about what classes to take and when during their senior year. And then they go straight into the master's program and they finish, within 1 year's time. So they've shortened what would otherwise take longer to finish their master's program. It could be the case that as a program, you want to experiment with concurrent and dual enrollment initially, get a feel for how your students are doing, the interest, how successful they are. And then when you're ready, you might want to expand that to being a 4+1 program. And at that point, you would have data about student success and student interest to support the idea of a 4+1 for your program. So with that, I want to just summarize by saying concurrent enrollment is an extra class added on at the end. Students have to pay the tuition. It's not going to apply to undergraduate. Dual enrollment, it's not an extra class tacked on at the end. It is a specifically targeted class that instead of taking the 4,000 version, students take the 5,000 version, which allows that course to count both in the undergraduate degree and the graduate degree. I hope that this information has been helpful. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us at the graduate school. Thanks.